The first time someone tells you the truth about your own life, it does not arrive the way you expect. It does not come with a warning. It does not come in an envelope or a phone call or a conversation you had time to prepare for. It comes as a whisper from a child in a room too polished for whispers. I was standing under the chandeliers of Harrow and Vance on Fifth Avenue, October light coming through the front windows, the kind of light that makes expensive things look even more expensive. The kind of light that jewelry stores pay architects $250,000 to engineer, because the right light does not just illuminate a stone, it sells it. It tells the man holding his pen that this is the moment, this is the gesture, this is what 42 years deserves. A sapphire ring, cushion cut, set in platinum, resting in a box lined with dark velvet the color of a bruise that has not yet decided to heal. $240,000. My pen was already uncapped. 3 seconds from a signature. That is when I felt a small tug on my sleeve. I need you to understand something about the man I was at that moment. I was Arthur Langford. I had built Langford Pacific Construction from a single concrete pour in the rain in Newark, New Jersey in the spring of 1974. I was 23 years old then. I had a borrowed mixer, a partner who would later become my brother-in-law, and a back that did not yet know what a bad morning felt like. By the time I was standing in that jewelry store, I was 71. The company was worth $300 million. My name opened doors before I touched them. People agreed with me in restaurants. They agreed with me in boardrooms. They agreed with me in my own kitchen, which is the most dangerous place of all for a man to stop hearing the truth. By the time a man is old enough to know better, the silence around him sounds like respect. And he has forgotten that respect and fear make the same shape with the mouth. I had built $300 million worth of forgetting. So when the girl tugged my sleeve, my first reaction was not curiosity, it was irritation. The kind of irritation a man my age learns to disguise as patience. I looked down at her and I felt the muscles around my mouth get ready to do the thing they always did. Smile politely. Deflect. Return to the adult business of spending $250,000 on a stone for a woman who in 3 days would turn 70 and pretend to be surprised. But something stopped me. I am still not sure what. She could not have been more than 10 years old. Brown skin, steady eyes, a mop bucket still waiting behind the curtain where her mother worked. She was wearing a sweater that was too big for her and sneakers that were too clean the way children's sneakers are clean when they only own one pair and somebody makes sure they stay that way. Children that age fidget. They look at their feet. They look at the door their mother walked through. This child did none of those things. She held my eyes the way my old foreman Garrett used to hold them on the third floor of a building site in Newark in 1974, when he had to tell me the steel we ordered was wrong and the deadline did not care. That kind of look has nothing to do with age. That kind of look comes from somewhere deeper than years. Sir, she said, that ring is not real. The blue stone, it is not what they are telling you. I glanced up. The salesman was still smiling. Vincent, silver hair, French cuffs, the easy bearing of a man who had sold yachts before he sold stones. He had the kind of posture that said, I have never been wrong about anything, and I do not intend to start today. He had not heard the girl, or he was pretending he had not. Sweetheart, I said, the way old men say things to children when they want to be kind and dismissive at the same time. This is one of the oldest jewelry houses in the country. They have certificates. They have gemologists on staff. They have insurance that would make your eyes water. She did not blink. My uncle cuts stones in Newark. I sit with him on Saturdays. He showed me how to see inside them with the light. The light in that ring is wrong. Newark. The word hit me sideways, the way a word can when it belongs to a part of your life you have paved over with money and silence and years of telling yourself you have moved on. Newark is where I started. Newark is where I poured that first slab of concrete in the rain with a borrowed mixer and a man named Gerald who was my partner first, then my brother-in-law, and then somewhere along the way became my wife's brother instead of mine. Funny how a single word can open a door you thought you had sealed shut 20 years ago. Show me, I heard myself say. Vincent took one step forward. Just one, smooth as a cat on carpet. Mr. Langford, perhaps the young lady could wait outside while we complete the paperwork. I am sure she means well, but we have protocols for the handling of stones at this level, and I would hate for there to be any She stays. I did not raise my voice. I did not have to. A man learns after 40 years of running rooms that the quietest sentence is the loudest one. You do not need volume. You need certainty. And certainty sounds like a door closing. Vincent's smile stayed exactly where it was, but something behind it moved. Just an inch. The way a painting moves on the wall when there is a tremor in the foundation, and you are the only one who notices. The girl reached up. She had to reach. She took the ring from the velvet with 2 fingers. Not the way a child picks up a toy. The way her uncle must have taught her. The way a man checks a weld before he trusts his weight to it. Precise. Unhurried. Respectful of the thing itself even when the thing itself might be a lie. She walked it 3 steps to the side. To the small lamp the appraisers use. The one with the cold white bulb that does not flatter. The bulb they keep on the side counter for the people who know enough to ask for it, which is almost nobody, because almost nobody asks. She tilted the stone. Once, twice, a small turn of the wrist. I had seen that exact motion 1,000 times on construction sites. The way a man rotates a joint, a fitting, a connection point, looking for the flaw that will show itself only under the right angle of light. See that, she whispered, holding it up so only I could see. Real sapphire has tiny lines inside, like silk. My uncle calls it silk. This one is too clean. The color is the same all the way through. Real ones have zones. The light pools different in the corners. Like it is thinking about where to go. This one does not think. It just shines. I looked. 40 years of reading blueprints. 40 years of reading invoices. 40 years of reading the small print on contracts that other men assumed I would not read because I came from Newark and talked like I came from Newark, and they mistook the accent for a lack of attention. I had trained my eyes on small things for so long that I had forgotten I could still use them for something other than making money. She was right. The stone was beautiful. Beautiful the way a movie set is beautiful. Beautiful for the camera. Beautiful for the man who does not look twice. It had the color. It had the size. It had every surface quality that a man who is not a gemologist would expect from a $240,000 sapphire in a velvet box on Fifth Avenue. But the light was wrong. She was right about the light. It went through the stone the way headlights go through fog. Evenly. Without resistance. Without the small interruptions that natural formation leaves behind. Without the silk. I did not say anything for a long moment. I just stood there. An old man in a $5,000 suit holding a fake sapphire that had been chosen specifically for me by people who had decided somewhere in a back room that I would never see that I was the kind of customer who would not look twice. And the kind of customer who would not look twice is not a compliment. It is a verdict. And then a colder thought arrived. Slow. The way cold always arrives in old buildings. Through the floor first, up through the soles of your shoes, into the bones. If they had decided that about me here in this store today, who else had decided that about me? For how long, and how many decisions had been made about my life in rooms I had never entered by people who had already calculated that Arthur Langford does not look twice? I turned the stone in my fingers one more time, not because I needed more evidence, because I was not ready to set it down. Setting it down meant something. Setting it down meant that the next question was not about the stone. Vincent cleared his throat. Soft, professional, the sound of a man preparing the next sentence of a script he had run before. But I was no longer in his store. I was somewhere further back. I was in my kitchen on a Tuesday morning 2 months ago, watching Eleanor slide a piece of paper across the granite countertop. Just a small thing, darling. Just sign here. And I had signed it because she was my wife, and we had been married for 42 years, and a man does not read the fine print on papers his wife slides across the counter on a Tuesday morning. Or he should, but he does not, because trust is the most expensive thing a man can own, and he does not realize the price until the invoice arrives. I was in my study last spring, a lawyer's voice on the speakerphone. Something about a trust amendment that Eleanor already approved on your behalf, Mr. Langford. Just a formality, just a signature. I was at a dinner in March. Eleanor's brother, Gerald, the man I had taught to read a balance sheet in 1979 over coffee in a diner in Queens, because Eleanor had asked me to give him a chance, because she loved him, because she said he just needed someone to believe in him. Gerald sitting across from me at the long table. not quite meeting my eyes when I asked about the Tampa property. A man's life does not unravel all at once. It unravels in 100 small moments he was too busy to look at twice. I set the stone down. I looked at the girl. "What is your name, Zara?" "Zara." I said it slowly. "The way you say a word when you are trying to put it somewhere, it will stay." "How old are you, Zara?" 10. I nodded. I handed the ring back to her. Not to Vincent. A small thing. But Vincent saw it. His jaw moved a fraction. The involuntary response of a man who has just lost possession of something he did not realize he was holding. "Zara," I said, "I need you to do me one more favor." She waited. "I need you to tell me everything you have heard in this store in the last hour. Because something was telling me in the slow, cold way that old buildings tell you the truth that the ring was not the beginning of the story. The ring was the end of it." She did not answer right away. She looked once toward the curtain where her mother had gone. Then she looked at Vincent. Then she looked back at me. And I understood the calculation she was running behind those steady eyes. Her mother cleaned this store. Her mother needed this job. And a 10-year-old girl in Manhattan already knows what happens to brown women who cause trouble for rich white men in rooms with chandeliers. She already knows the math. She already knows the cost. And the fact that she had tugged my sleeve anyway, knowing that math was either the bravest thing or the most reckless thing I had seen in a very long time. I knelt down. My knees made the sound knees make at 71. A small protest. A reminder that the body keeps a ledger the mind would rather not read. "Zara, whatever you tell me, your mother keeps her job. You have my word. And my word in this city still means something. Look at me." She looked. "It means something," I said again. She nodded once. Small. Almost invisible. The way men nod when they sign contracts they intend to keep. "There is a back room," she said, "behind the curtain. My mom cleans it after the store closes. But sometimes I go in there during the day when she is working in the front. There is a desk. There is a phone. The man with the silver hair was in there about an hour before you came in." She paused. She was choosing her words the way her uncle probably chose his cuts. Carefully, with respect for the consequences. "He was on the phone with a woman. He called her Mrs. L. He said the stone was ready. He said her husband never looks at certificates. He said something about the policy being in her name by the end of the month and that the timing was important. He said by the time anyone notices, it will not matter." My hands were very still. I had learned to keep my hands still in meetings that cost millions. I had not expected to need that skill in a jewelry store on a Saturday afternoon. "Zara," I said carefully, "did the woman on the phone have a name? He called her Eleanor one time. Then he stopped. He apologized. He said it was a slip. Then he called her Mrs. L again for the rest of the call." The chandelier above me made a small sound. Crystal against crystal. Probably the ventilation system. Probably nothing. It was not nothing. I want you to understand something. I want you to understand it the way I understood it in that moment. Standing in a jewelry store on Fifth Avenue, with my knees aching and my pen still uncapped in my pocket, and a 10-year-old child watching me with more patience than any board member I had ever sat across from. A man can know a thing and not know it. A man can carry a suspicion in his chest for years and call it indigestion. A man can watch his wife of 42 years stop laughing at his jokes around year 38. Stop reaching for his hand in the car around year 40. Start taking phone calls in the garden around year 41. And tell himself that this is just what marriage looks like when you get old. Comfortable. That is the word men my age use for it. Comfortable. Comfortable is the word a man uses when he does not want to use the right one. I stood up slowly. The store felt very far away. The chandeliers, the glass cases, the soft music designed to make you spend money you do not need to spend. All of it had moved one step back, like a movie set being struck while the actor is still in the scene. "Vincent," I said. "Mr. Langford." His voice was perfect, polished smooth by years of practice. "I am going to ask you one question, and I am going to ask it once. The answer determines whether you spend the rest of your career selling sapphires on Fifth Avenue or whether you spend it explaining to a federal prosecutor why your name appears in a fraud investigation involving a $240,000 stone and a forged insurance policy. Do you understand me?" His face did not change, but the color underneath it did. I had seen that exact shade once before. On a contractor in 1987 who had been double billing me for 3 years and had just realized in the space of a single sentence that the man across the table had been keeping his own set of books. The body knows before the face does. The body always knows. Where is the real ring, Vincent? He did not answer for a long second. And in that second, I watched him do the math every man does at the moment his life forks. The math of how much do they actually know? How much can I still save? Who do I betray first? In the vault, he said finally. Downstairs. It has been there for 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Mrs. Langford selected it herself in February. She paid for it separately. The piece you were going to sign for today is a duplicate. The original is registered under a different name. Whose name? He swallowed. Her brother's. Gerald? Gerald? The man I had taught to read a balance sheet in a diner in Queens in 1979, because his sister had asked me to give him a chance. Because she loved him. Because she said he just needed someone to believe in him. The man who had been managing my offshore trust for the last 6 years. The man who sat at my Thanksgiving table every year and carved the turkey because I had told him once years ago that he carved better than I did. And he had taken that small compliment and carried it like a badge, the way men carry small kindnesses from other men when they do not receive many. That man. I felt something happen in my chest. Not pain, the opposite of pain. A strange settling, like a building finding its footing after a tremor. The kind of settling that happens not when something breaks, but when something finally stops pretending to hold. I have been told by men who study these things that the human body releases a specific chemical when betrayal becomes undeniable. It is not adrenaline. It is older than adrenaline. It is the chemistry of the moment a man stops being the one who is acted upon and becomes something else, something quieter, something with a longer memory. I did not say anything to Vincent. I did not need to. He had the look of a man who had already begun calculating how many of his belongings he could fit in a car. I took out my phone. I dialed a number I had not dialed in 11 years. Harlan Burgess, federal prosecutor when I knew him, private practice now. The kind of lawyer who answers his own phone on a Saturday because he remembers who pulled him out of a bad spot in 1998 when nobody else would take the call. He picked up on the third ring. Arthur, he said, I was wondering when I would hear from you. I stopped. Harlan, what does that mean? There was a pause on the other end. The kind of pause that costs money. The kind of pause that comes from a man who has been carrying something for a while and is now deciding whether to set it down. It means, he said carefully, that I think we need to have a conversation that should have happened about 18 months ago. I looked around the store, at Vincent, who was very still, at Zara, who was watching me with eyes that had seen more in 10 years than some men see in 70. I am on Fifth Avenue, I said, and I think I just found out I have been the last person in my own life to know what is happening in it. Stay there, Harlan said. I am 12 minutes away. Do not sign anything. Do not say anything to Eleanor. And Arthur. Yes. Whoever just told you, whoever it was, keep them close, because in about 3 hours you are going to need a witness, and witnesses who cannot be bought are harder to find than sapphires. I hung up. I looked at Zara. She was still standing there with the fake sapphire in her hand, holding it carefully, the way you hold something that might still bite even after it is dead. Zara, I said, I want you to put that ring back in the box, and I want you to come with me. We are going to make one phone call, and then I am going to buy you and your mother lunch at any restaurant in this city you want. She thought about it, genuinely thought about it, the way only a child who has learned that promises from adults are a currency that does not always clear thinks about things. There is a diner on 47th, she said. My mom likes their pancakes. I almost laughed. The first real laugh in I do not know how long. The kind of laugh that comes up from the basement of a man who has been keeping his ground floor too quiet for too many years. Pancakes, I said. Pancakes will do just fine. Harlan Burgess arrived in 11 minutes, not 12. He had always been faster than he promised. That was one of the reasons I had trusted him in 1998, and one of the reasons I still trusted him now. He came through the glass doors of Harrow and Vance the way he always came into a room, without looking around first. A man who did not need to know where the exits were because he had stopped being afraid of rooms a long time ago. Gray suit, no tie. The kind of leather briefcase that men my age recognize as money, but men Vincent's age mistake for old. He had the walk of a man who had spent 30 years carrying things that did not belong to him. Other people's trouble, other people's secrets, other people's worst moments, and had figured out how to set them down at the end of the day without breaking. He saw me. He saw Zara. He saw Vincent standing very still by the display case. And in about 3 seconds, his face did something I had never seen it do in 28 years of knowing him. It went soft, just for a moment, around the eyes. The way a man's face goes soft when he sees something he has been preparing to say out loud and realizes he will not have to. "Arthur," he said quietly. "Harlan." He looked down at Zara. He did not kneel. He did not do the voice adults do when they talk to children. The bright, fake voice that children can smell from 100 feet away. He just looked at her level, the way he had looked at me in his office in 1998 when I was the one in the bad spot. "Young lady," he said, "I understand you are the reason we are all standing here right now." She did not answer. She looked at me first. I nodded. "Yes, sir," she said. "Then I work for you today, too, same as I work for him. You understand me?" She thought about that. Then she nodded once, that same small nod, the contract nod. Harlan turned to Vincent. The softness went out of his face the way warmth goes out of a room when someone opens the wrong window. "You," he said, "sit down over there. Do not touch your phone. Do not touch the desk phone. Do not touch anything. If you need to use the bathroom, you ask me first. Are we clear?" Vincent sat down. Harlan made one phone call. Short. 5 words I did not catch. Then he put his phone away and looked at me. "Walk with me," he said. He took my elbow. The way old friends do when they want to say something without anyone reading their lips. And he steered me toward the front window of the store. Away from Vincent. Away from Zara. Into the small, bright space where the diamonds in the window caught the afternoon sun and threw it back across the marble floor in little broken pieces. "Arthur," he said, "I need to tell you some things very quickly, and I need you not to react with your face. Can you do that for me? I can do that. I had a lifetime of practice. 18 months ago, your wife's brother retained a tax attorney in the Cayman Islands. I kept my face still. 6 months after that, an asset protection firm in Delaware. 4 months after that, a divorce attorney in Connecticut. The divorce attorney has not yet been instructed to file. He has been instructed to prepare. There is a difference. The difference is timing. I watched the diamonds in the window throw their light on the floor. 3 weeks ago, Harlan continued, your medical records were requested by a firm I do not recognize. The request was authorized by a power of attorney you signed in 2019. Do you remember signing a medical power of attorney in 2019? I did. Eleanor had been worried about a small procedure I was having. A hernia. Nothing. Outpatient. In and out the same day. Just in case, darling. Just in case. Just in case. 2 days ago, Harlan said a life insurance application was submitted on your behalf to a carrier in Bermuda. $12 million policy. Beneficiary your wife. Signed allegedly by you. The signature is good, Arthur. It is very good. It is so good that if I had not been watching for it, I would have believed it myself. I looked out the window. A woman walked by on the sidewalk holding a small child by the hand. Both of them laughing about something I would never hear. Harlan, I said, why have you been watching for it? He did not answer right away. He was choosing his words. Harlan always chose his words the way other men chose stocks, with a respect for what they could cost if he picked the wrong one. Because 11 months ago, he said your son called me. I turned my head. Slowly. Just enough, Bennett came to my office. He said his mother had asked him to sign something, and he did not like the way she asked. He did not know what it was. He had not signed it. He wanted to know if he should. I told him not to. I told him to go home and forget the conversation and to call me again only if something else happened that made him uncomfortable. He called me again 4 months later, and then again 2 months ago. My son had called my lawyer 3 times in 11 months, and he had not called me. Why did he not call me, Harlan? Harlan's face went soft again. Just for a second. Arthur, he said. Think about that question. Think about what it means that your son called your lawyer instead of his father. I thought about it. I thought about the last time Bennett had come to dinner. February. He had sat across from me at the long table in the dining room while Eleanor poured wine. He had asked me twice how I was feeling. The second time, his voice had been careful in a way I had not noticed at the time. "How are you feeling, Dad?" Really. And I had laughed. I had said something about my golf swing getting worse and my handicap getting better, and the whole table had moved on. And Eleanor had refilled his glass, and the moment had passed. The moment had passed because I had let it pass, because I had spent 40 years building a man who did not let his son ask him careful questions, a man who answered everything with a joke or a deflection or a firm handshake and a subject change. I had built that man so carefully. I had built him out of 14-hour days and missed birthdays, and the conviction that providing was the same as loving. And my son had not been able to walk through the front door of that man to tell him that his mother was preparing to bury him in it. Harlan let the silence sit for a moment. Then he touched my arm. "There is more," he said, "but the more can wait until we are in the car. Right now we need to move. Eleanor is at the house in Greenwich. She is expecting you home at 6 with a sapphire ring. She is not expecting you home at 4 with a lawyer and a witness. Do you understand what I am telling you? You want to move before she knows. I want to move before her brother knows. Gerald is the one who moves money. She moves emotions, different muscles, different timelines." I looked back across the store. Zara was sitting on the small velvet bench by the curtain. Her feet did not quite touch the floor. She had taken a small notebook from somewhere, and she was drawing something in it with a pencil that looked like it had been sharpened with a kitchen knife. She was not looking at us, but I could feel her listening the way she had listened in the back room, the way she would, I suspected, listen for the rest of her life. Because some people are built to hear what the rest of us are too tired to notice. "Harlan," I said, "there is a child in this story now. She does not get hurt by this. Not now, not 10 years from now, not when somebody tries to figure out who told me. Do you understand me? I understand you. Her mother works in this store. Her mother does not lose this job. Her mother gets a better job. Today. By the end of the day." Harlan looked at me for a long moment, and then he did something he had not done in 28 years of knowing me. He smiled, a small, tired, real smile, the kind of smile that has nothing to do with humor and everything to do with recognition. "There he is," he said. "There who is the man I met in 1998. I was starting to wonder if he was still in there." I did not answer that. I did not know how to answer it, because I did not know if he was still in there either. I had buried him under a lot of concrete and a lot of years and a lot of dinners in the cream-colored kitchen of a house in Greenwich where a woman poured wine with one hand and signed papers with the other. But maybe he was. Maybe the man from Newark was still in there, the man who poured his first slab in the rain. The man who had once, at 26 years old, looked across a folding table at a contractor who was trying to cheat him and had said very quietly, "You will not do that to me twice." Maybe that man was standing in a jewelry store on Fifth Avenue, finding out at 71 what he should have found out at 68, or 65, or 60, or maybe never. Because some truths do not have a right time. They have only the time they arrive. Harlan clapped me once on the shoulder. Gentle. The way men our age clap each other when there are no words for the thing happening between them. Then he walked back across the marble floor toward Vincent, who was sitting very still and had gone the color of old paper. I stayed by the window for another moment. Then I walked to Zara. "We are going to take a short ride," I said, "to a house in Greenwich, you and me and the man in the gray suit. Your mother will finish her shift, and my driver Marcus will bring her to a safe place tonight. A hotel, with a room and food and a bed. Nobody will ask her to do anything she does not want to do." Zara closed her notebook. She put the pencil in her pocket. "Okay," she said. "Just that. Okay. I have signed contracts worth $100 million and felt less than I felt standing there looking at that small, steady face." The car was waiting at the curb. Black sedan. Marcus had been with me for 16 years. He opened the back door without speaking, but his eyes moved once very fast from me to Harlan, to Zara, and back to me. A question asked without being asked. I shook my head. Small. Later. He nodded, closed the door. The three of us sat in the back. Harlan on the jump seat, his briefcase across his knees. Zara in the middle, her feet not quite touching the floor mat. Me by the window, watching Fifth Avenue slide past. Watching a city I had lived in for 46 years suddenly look like a place I had been visiting. We rode in silence for a while. The silence of three people carrying a thing none of them had wanted and all of them were now responsible for. Then Zara spoke. "Mr. Langford, you can call me Arthur." "Mr. Arthur, can I tell you something?" "You can tell me anything." She was quiet for a moment, looking at her hands. Then she looked up. "My grandma raised me and my mom both. My mom was 16 when she had me. My grandma worked nights cleaning offices on Wall Street. She came home at 6 in the morning and she made us breakfast, and then she slept for 4 hours, and then she went back. She did that for 9 years, until she died. I did not say anything. Neither did Harlan. Her name was Josephine Carter. Everybody called her Miss Joe. She used to sit with me on the fire escape when I could not sleep, and she would tell me things, not stories, things, real things, about people." Zara paused. She was not looking at her hands anymore. She was looking straight ahead at the partition between us and Marcus, at something behind the partition that only she could see. "She told me one time that the hardest thing in the world is not knowing somebody is bad. The hardest thing in the world is knowing somebody is bad and still loving them. She said that is the test. She said most people fail it." The car was moving through Midtown now, the buildings sliding past the window like a deck of cards being shuffled by a hand too large to see. She said the ones who pass it are the ones who can do the hard thing anyway. Not because they do not love the person, because they do. She said the easy door is for people who do not really love anybody. They just love how the person makes them feel. That is different. She looked at me. That is what she said. I turned my face to the window. The buildings were starting to thin. We were moving toward the highway, toward Greenwich, toward a house with a long gravel driveway and a woman waiting in a cream-colored kitchen, with the lights low and a smile I had loved in 1984, and a plan I had not seen coming for 42 years. I turned my face to the window because I did not want a 10-year-old child to see what a grown man's face does when he hears the truth out loud for the first time in 3 years, and recognizes it not because it is new, but because it is old, and he has been carrying it in his chest since at least February and calling it indigestion. Harlan quietly reached into his pocket. He handed me his handkerchief, an old gesture, the kind of gesture that belongs to men who grew up in a time when you carried a handkerchief because you never knew when someone near you would need one. I took it. I did not use it. I just held it, folded, in my hand, the way you hold something someone gave you because they did not know what else to give. After a long minute, I spoke. "Zara, your grandmother sounds like she was a remarkable woman." "She was." "What was her name again?" "Her full name, Josephine Carter. Miss Joe." "Miss Joe," I said. I said it slowly. I tried to put it somewhere it would stay, somewhere the years and the noise and the money could not reach it. "Zara, I am going to remember Miss Joe for the rest of my life. Do you understand what I am telling you?" She thought about it, really thought about it, the way she thought about everything. "You mean you are going to do something?" "I mean I am going to do something." She nodded once. She turned and looked out her own window, and we rode in silence the rest of the way up the Hutchinson River Parkway. Three people in a black sedan carrying a thing between them that none of them had wanted, but all of them were now responsible for. A 10-year-old girl who had decided to trust an old man she did not know, a lawyer who had been waiting 11 months for a phone call, and a man who was beginning to understand in the slow way that understanding comes to men who have spent their whole lives building things that the largest structure he had ever built, the one he had been living inside for 42 years, had a foundation he had never inspected. The trees along the parkway were just at that point in October where they have decided to burn but have not yet decided when. The light was going gold. The city was behind us, and somewhere ahead in a house with a slate roof and creamstone walls and soft yellow lamps already lit against the early dusk, a woman was standing in a kitchen, waiting for a man to come home with a sapphire ring, not knowing that the man coming home was not the man who had left that morning. Harlan looked at me. His legal pad was open on his briefcase. His pen was ready. "Arthur," he said, "I have not gotten to the hard part yet." "I know," I said. And the car kept moving north. There is a moment on the Hutchinson River Parkway just past the Bronx line where the highway rises slightly and the trees close in from both sides and the city behind you disappears. Not gradually, all at once. One moment you are in New York, the next moment you are in something older. Something that smells like leaf rot and money, and the particular silence of towns where the driveways are longer than the streets. I had made that drive 1,000 times in 16 years. I had never noticed the moment the city disappeared. I noticed it now. Harlan had his legal pad balanced on his briefcase. He was writing in small, careful letters the way he always wrote, as if each word were a brick and he was building something that would need to hold weight. Zara was watching him write, fascinated, the way children are fascinated by adults who do not perform for them, who simply do their work and let the child decide whether to watch. Arthur Harlan said, without looking up, I'm going to walk you through the rest of it, and I need you to listen the way you used to listen when I brought you bad news in my office. All the way through. No interruptions. Then you ask your questions. All right, all right. He set his pen down. He looked at me. 18 months ago, Gerald retained a tax attorney in Georgetown, Grand Cayman. Not a local accountant, a specialist. The kind of firm that builds structures for people who are moving money in one direction and do not want anyone to see it leave. 6 months after that, Gerald engaged an asset protection firm in Wilmington, Delaware. The firm specializes in domestic trusts with offshore components. They are very good. They are also very expensive. The retainer alone was $175,000. He paused. Not for effect. Harlan did not do things for effect. He paused because the next part was worse, and he wanted me to have a moment before it arrived. 4 months after that, a divorce attorney in Stamford, Connecticut was retained. Not by Gerald, by Eleanor. The attorney's name is Richard Kavanaugh. He is one of the best in the state. He has not been instructed to file. He has been instructed to prepare. And the difference between preparing and filing, Arthur, is the difference between loading a gun and pulling the trigger. The gun has been loaded for 8 months. I watched the trees slide past the window. Oaks mostly, some maples. The kind of trees that have been standing in the same place for 100 years and have learned to be patient about it. 3 weeks ago, Harlan continued a request was submitted for your complete medical records. Primary care, cardiology, the knee surgery last year, everything. The request was authorized by a durable power of attorney that you signed on April 14, 2019. Do you remember the circumstances of that signing? I did. I remembered the kitchen. I remembered Eleanor standing at the island with a pen and a small stack of papers and a glass of wine. I remembered the way she had presented it. Casual, almost an afterthought. You are having that hernia procedure next week, darling. Dr. Feldstein's office sent these over. Standard forms, just in case anything happens. You know how they are. Belt and suspenders. I had signed them between bites of dinner. I had not read them. I had not read them because my wife had handed them to me, and my wife had been handing me things for 42 years, and I had been signing them for 42 years, and the system had always worked because I had believed the system was built on trust. The system was not built on trust. The system was built on my willingness not to look. What were the medical records for, I said. My voice sounded like it was coming from a room down the hall. Harlan looked at me steadily. 2 days ago, a life insurance application was submitted to a carrier in Hamilton, Bermuda. $12 million term policy, 20-year term. Beneficiary Arthur Langford. The application includes a full medical history, which is how I know your records were pulled. The application was signed by you. I did not sign anything. I know you did not. But the signature is very good, Arthur. Whoever produced it had access to multiple samples of your handwriting. They studied the pressure. They studied the slight leftward drift you have on your capital letters. They studied the way you close your G's, which is unusual. Most people loop them. You hook them. The signature on that application hooks the G's. The car was quiet. The engine was quiet. Marcus drove the way he always drove, as if the car were made of something more fragile than steel. The carrier in Bermuda processes applications on a 48-hour review window, Harlan said. They have approximately 31 hours remaining before that policy goes active. Once it is active, it becomes a binding financial instrument. It becomes real. And once it is real, your life becomes worth more to your wife dead than alive. I am not being dramatic. I am being precise. I know the difference. Good. He set the legal pad down on his briefcase. He folded his hands on top of it. He looked at me with the expression I had seen exactly once before in his office in 1998, When he had told me that a man I trusted had stolen $4 million from my pension fund and that we had 72 hours to recover it before it disappeared into a jurisdiction that did not care about my name or my handshake or my 14-hour days. That expression said, "This is the part where you decide who you are." Harlan, I said, "I have questions. I know you do. The medical power of attorney. Can it be used for anything beyond accessing records?" Harlan hesitated. It was a very small hesitation, the kind that only a man who has known another man for 28 years would notice. In its current form, it grants Eleanor the authority to make medical decisions on your behalf if you are incapacitated. It also grants her access to all medical information which she has exercised. Whether the document has been amended since you signed it is something I have not yet been able to determine. I have a colleague working on it tonight. The trust, the offshore trust that Gerald has been managing. What about it? How much is in it? As of the last statement I was able to obtain, which is from 7 months ago, the trust held approximately $44 million in diversified assets. The current balance is unknown. Gerald has sole signatory authority. You granted it to him in 2018. I granted it to him because Eleanor asked me to. Because she said Gerald had changed. Because she said he had grown up. Because she said it would mean the world to him to be trusted with something real. I know why you granted it, Arthur. That is not the question you should be asking. What is the question I should be asking? The question is, where is the $44 million now? The trees outside were turning gold. The light was doing the thing October light does in Connecticut, going low and warm and horizontal, turning everything it touches into something that looks like a memory, even while it is still happening. I had one more question. I had been holding it since Fifth Avenue. I had been holding it the way a man holds a stone in his pocket, turning it over and over with his fingers, knowing the shape of it, not wanting to look at it. You said Bennett called you 11 months ago. Yes. You said he called you instead of me. Yes. Harlan. Why? He was quiet for a moment. He turned and looked at Zara, who was still sitting between us. Her notebook closed on her lap, her hands folded on top of it. She was not looking at either of us. She was looking straight ahead, giving us the privacy that adults do not know how to give each other, but that children sometimes understand instinctively. Harlan turned back to me. Arthur, he said, think about that question. Think about what it means that your 41-year-old son, a grown man with a family of his own, chose to call your attorney before he called his father. Think about what kind of man you would have to have built, what kind of door you would have to have installed on the front of your life for your own son to decide that the lawyer was the safer entry point. I thought about it. I thought about Bennett at that dinner in February. The careful voice. How are you feeling, Dad, really? And the way I had laughed and changed the subject, the way I changed every subject that got too close to the part of me that was not made of concrete and contracts, and the certainty that providing was the same as loving. I thought about Bennett at 23, the year he told me he wanted to teach high school history instead of joining the company. The silence at the dinner table that night. Not anger. I had not been angry. I had been something worse than angry. I had been disappointed, and I had let him see it. I had let my son see that his choice, his honest choice, the first real choice he had ever made, independent of me, had landed in his father's chest like something that needed to be fixed. He did not become a teacher. He went to law school instead. Different from mine, a smaller firm, a quieter life. But law. Because law was close enough to what I understood that I could nod at Thanksgiving when he talked about his work. Because law let me say my son the attorney without the pause that would have come before my son the teacher. I had done that. I had built a door so heavy that my own son could not push it open to tell me that his mother was stealing my life. He had stood on the other side of that door for 11 months, holding what he knew, carrying the weight of it, sitting across from Eleanor at family dinners, with the knowledge in his chest like a stone he could not put down. Because I had not built a father, he could bring that stone too. I looked out the window. The Hutchinson was narrowing. We were approaching the exit for Greenwich. The stone walls were starting. The hedges. The houses set back from the road behind their gates the way certain women sit back from a conversation watching, deciding what to reveal. All right, I said. Arthur, I hear you. Good, because we are about to be at your house, and I need to tell you what happens next. Tell me. You are going to walk in that door. You are going to greet Eleanor the way you greet her every evening. You are going to tell her the ring was not ready. The setting needed adjustment. Vincent will send it up tomorrow. She will believe you. She will believe you because she has spent the last 3 years believing that you do not notice things. That belief is our best asset right now. Do you understand? I understand. While you are doing that, I am going to be in your study with Zara. My associate will meet us there. We are going to go through every document in your safe. Every single one. I have a list of what should be there. I want to see what is actually there. All right. At some point this evening, Eleanor will excuse herself to make a phone call. She will call Gerald or Gerald will call her. The Bermuda carrier is on a clock. They will be nervous. Nervous people use phones. That is useful to us. All right. And tomorrow morning, Arthur, you and I are going to have a different conversation. A conversation about doors. But that is tomorrow. Tonight is about not moving your face. Can you do that? I have been doing it for 42 years, I said. I just did not know I was doing it. Marcus slowed at the gate. The gate I had installed in 2009. The gate with the code that Eleanor had insisted we change 3 times in the last 8 months. For security, darling. You hear such terrible things. The gate opened. The gravel crunched under the tires the way it had crunched every day for 16 years. A sound I had loved. A sound that had meant home. I listened to it now the way Zara had listened to the stone under the cold lamp. Looking for what was wrong. Looking for what I had been too comfortable to hear. The house came into view at the top of the rise. Creamstone, slate roof. The soft yellow lamps in the front windows already lit against the early dusk. A beautiful house. A house that had been on the cover of a magazine once in 2014. A house that Eleanor had decorated room by room over the course of 20 years with the slow, careful taste of a woman who knew exactly what she was building. I just had not known what she was building. I looked at Zara one more time before I opened the door. She was watching the house come closer with the same level patience she had watched everything else. The steady gaze, the Josephine Carter gaze, the gaze of a woman who had mopped floors on Wall Street for 9 years and died too young and had somehow through the strange long mathematics of a life ended up sitting in the back of a sedan approaching a house in Greenwich at the age of 10. Zara, I said, Harlan is going to take you inside through the side entrance. You are going to stay in my study. There are books in there. There is a chair by the fireplace. You do not have to do anything. You just have to be there. Can you do that? She looked at the house. She looked at me. Is the lady in there? She is. Is she going to know I am there? No. Okay, she said. I will be quiet. You do not have to be quiet. You just have to be safe. She nodded. Then she said something that I did not expect. Mr. Arthur, your house is very big. It is. She looked at it again. My grandma's apartment was 4 rooms. She knew what was in every one of them. I opened the car door. The cold air hit my face. October in Connecticut. The kind of cold that does not announce itself. It just arrives and stands next to you and waits for you to notice. I walked up the front steps of my own home. For what I already knew in the part of a man that knows these things before the rest of him catches up would be the last time as the man I had been when I left it that morning. Eleanor was in the kitchen. I could tell before I saw her, the way you can tell anything in a house you have lived in for 16 years. The light was wrong in a specific way. The light over the island was on, but the light over the breakfast nook was off, which meant she was standing, not sitting, which meant she had a glass of wine, which meant she was waiting. Her voice reached me before I turned the corner. Darling, is that you? I thought you would be later. Tell me you got it. I stepped into the kitchen. I want to describe her to you. Not the way a husband describes a wife. Not with the softness that 42 years of habit puts on the lens. The way a man describes something he is seeing clearly for the first time, even though he has looked at it every day of his life. She was standing at the island, wine glass in her right hand, 70 years old in 3 days. White hair cut to the jaw. The kind of cut that costs $400 in the city and looks like it costs nothing. A cream cashmere sweater, gray slacks, small pearl earrings that her mother had worn at our wedding, the faint expensive smell of the perfume I had bought her in Paris in 1996 on a trip we took for our 12th anniversary. The one she had switched to permanently after that and never told me why. Maybe because she had loved that trip. Maybe because I had not asked enough questions about why she loved it. beautiful. Even at 70, maybe especially at 70. There is a kind of beauty that arrives late in certain women, the way certain light arrives late in October. The bones come forward, the performance falls away. What is left is what was always there underneath. And in some women, what is there is grace. And in some women, what is there is something else. I had been telling myself for 42 years that what was there was grace. She smiled when she saw me. The same smile. The same one from the photograph on the mantel taken in 1989. The two of us on the deck of a boat in Newport. Bennett 3 years old between us. All of us squinting into the sun. "You are empty-handed," she said. Light, teasing. The voice of a woman who already knows the answer but wants to hear it performed. They needed another day. The setting was not quite right. Vincent said he would messenger it up tomorrow afternoon. Vincent, she said his name the way you say the name of a reliable appliance. Bless him. I told you he would take care of us. He took care of us, I said. She walked around the island toward me, slowly, the way she always walked toward me in this kitchen. A walk I had loved for years without examining it, without asking myself whether it was the walk of a woman coming toward her husband or the walk of a woman arriving at a position she had chosen in advance. She put one hand on my chest. She tilted her face up. She kissed me. A short kiss, the kiss of a long marriage. The kiss that means welcome home and nothing more and nothing less, and is so practiced that it could mean anything or nothing and you would never know the difference. I kissed her back. I want you to understand why I kissed her back. I kissed her back because if I had not kissed her back, she would have known. Not all of it, but enough. Enough to pick up a phone. Enough to call Gerald. Enough to start the clock on a set of movements that Harlan and I could not yet see the full shape of. And we needed to see the shape before we moved. But that is not the whole reason. I kissed her back because some part of me, some old, stupid, beautiful, ruined part of me, that I had thought I had killed in the back of the sedan on the Hutchinson River Parkway, was still hoping that Zara had been wrong, that Vincent had been lying, that Harlan had been mistaken, that the 18 months of preparation in the Caymans and Delaware and Connecticut had been some kind of accounting exercise I did not understand. A man does not stop loving his wife in an afternoon. A man stops loving his wife the way a building stops standing. Slowly, one beam at a time, one bolt at a time, and then all at once. In a moment he does not get to choose. She stepped back. She looked at my face. Something moved very slightly behind her eyes. The smallest thing. The way a curtain moves when a window is open in a room you thought was sealed. "Arthur," she said, "you look tired." It was a long afternoon. "Did something happen at the store, Vincent?" Was Vincent, I said. She laughed. A small, light laugh. The laugh I had loved in 1984. The laugh I had fallen in love with at a party in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, when she was 28 and I was 29, and neither of us knew what the next 42 years would cost. "Pour yourself a drink, darling. Sit down. Tell me about your day." I poured myself a scotch, 2 fingers, from the bottle on the sideboard that had been there since Christmas. I sat down at the breakfast nook. She sat across from me, the way she had sat across from me 10,000 times in this house, her wine glass between her hands, the island lamp making her hair glow white. And for the next 11 minutes we had a conversation, a normal conversation. She asked about the traffic on the FDR. I told her about the traffic on the FDR. She told me about her morning. The call with her decorator about the curtains in the guest room. The lunch with her friend Patricia, who was getting divorced for the second time and being very brave about it. She asked about Bennett. She said Bennett had called. He was bringing Sarah and the kids on Sunday. He sounded good. She asked if I wanted her to heat up the soup she had made or if we should call the restaurant in town. I said the soup would be fine. 11 minutes. The kind of conversation that two people who have been married for 42 years have over a glass of wine in their cream-colored kitchen at the end of a Tuesday in October. The kind of conversation that sounds like love, that sounds like marriage, that sounds like two people who have built something together and are resting inside it. And the whole time I was watching her face. I was watching her face the way Zara had watched the sapphire under the cold lamp, looking for the wrong color, looking for the place where the light pooled different in the corners, looking for the silk that should have been there and was not. and I was finding it. I was finding it everywhere. The way her eyes flicked very fast to my phone when it buzzed on the table, a movement that lasted less than a second. But I caught it the way I had caught 1,000 small details on construction sites over 40 years. The nail that was not flush, the beam that was not plumb, the crack in the foundation that was 3 inches long today and would be 3 feet long in 6 months if nobody looked at it. The way her shoulders relaxed visibly when I did not pick up the phone. The way she asked about Bennett with exactly the right amount of warmth. Not too much, not too little. The temperature of a woman who has rehearsed the question so many times that the rehearsal has become the reality, and the reality has become a thing she can produce on demand, the way a pianist produces a chord she has played 10,000 times. The way she lifted her wine glass with her left hand instead of her right. She had started doing that about 2 years ago. I had assumed it was her shoulder. She had said her shoulder was bothering her. And maybe it was her shoulder. Or maybe it was the small, precise habit of a woman who had learned not to display the bracelet on her right wrist. The bracelet Gerald had given her. The bracelet I had never asked about because a man does not ask his wife about a bracelet her brother gave her. Because why would he? 42 years. I had not been looking at her for 42 years. I had been looking at the photograph on the mantel from 1989. I had been looking at the woman in the rain outside the church in Bay Ridge in 1984. I had been looking at the country, and the country had been slowly year by year changing its borders while I was not looking. And now I was sitting across from a place I no longer recognized, and the place was still pouring me wine and asking me about the traffic on the FDR. My phone buzzed again. One word from Harlan. Now. I stood up. I am going to go wash my hands, I said. I will be right back. All right, darling. I walked out of the kitchen, down the long hallway, past the photograph from 1989 on the mantel. I did not look at it. I walked to the study. I opened the door. Harlan was sitting at my desk. My safe was open behind him. There were papers spread across the leather blotter in 3 neat piles. A 4th pile on the floor separates smaller. Zara was in the leather wing chair by the cold fireplace, her notebook on her knees, drawing something. She looked up when I came in. Harlan did not look up. He was holding a single sheet of paper. He set it down. He pressed his hands together very flat on top of it. Arthur, he said, close the door. I closed the door. Sit down. I did not sit down. Not yet. Because something in his voice, something in the way he was pressing his hands flat on that paper, told me that the moment I sat down, the conversation would begin, and the conversation would end somewhere I could not come back from. I walked past Harlan. I walked to the desk in the corner. Eleanor's desk. The small writing desk she used for her charity correspondence. The one with the computer I had set up for her in 2011 so she could manage the foundation's email without going to the office. I sat down at her desk. I opened the laptop. I knew her password because I had set up the account and she had never changed it. Because she had never imagined that I would look. Because in 42 years I had never looked. Harlan watched me. He did not say anything. He understood what I was doing. He understood that this was something I needed to find myself. Not be told. Not be shown. Find. The way I had found every problem on every construction site I had ever walked. With my own eyes. On my own 2 feet. I opened her email. I opened the sent folder. She never emptied her sent folder. She never deleted anything. She thought the cleaning woman did not know how to use a computer. She thought the world around her was not paying attention. She had built her entire strategy on the assumption that the people who served her were not watching. And for 3 years she had been right. Until one of those people was 10 years old and sat with her uncle on Saturdays and knew what silk looked like inside a stone. I scrolled through the sent folder. There were hundreds of emails, foundation correspondence, invitations, thank you notes to donors, the ordinary digital life of a wealthy woman who sat on 3 boards and shared a gala every spring. And then I found it, 11 days old, sent to Gerald's personal email address, 4 sentences long. I read it once. I read it again. I will not tell you the exact words. The exact words belong to a courtroom that has already heard them and a judge who has already ruled on them. But I will tell you what those 4 sentences said. They said that Bennett was becoming a problem. They said that Bennett had been asking questions. They said that if Bennett continued to talk to his father, something would need to be done. And they used a phrase that I will carry with me for however many years I have left. A phrase that was not violent, that was not a threat in any way a prosecutor could point to, but that was in its cold bureaucratic efficiency worse than a threat. Bennett needs to be handled. Handled. My son. My only son. The boy who had broken his arm in the sunroom in 2003, jumping off the back of the couch because he believed at 7 years old that his father would catch him. The man who had sat across from me at dinner in February and asked me twice with careful love in his voice how I was feeling. The man who had called my lawyer instead of calling me because I had built a man he could not reach. That man, my son, was a problem that needed to be handled. I sat in the chair at Eleanor's desk, in my own study, in the house I had built, across from a safe I had bought, and papers I had signed, and a life I had paid for, and a marriage I had believed in. And I felt the last part of it go. Not with rage, not with the loud things men do in movies when they discover the truth about their wives, not with shouting, not with breaking. It went quietly, the way old things go, the way my father had gone in a hospital bed in Queens in 1996, looking at the ceiling, having one last small thought he did not share, and then letting go. I felt it go. I felt the part of me that had been married to Arthur Langford for 42 years release its grip. Like a hand that has been holding something so long, it has forgotten it is holding anything. And then the fingers open, and the thing falls, and the hand does not grab for it. The hand just stays open, empty, quiet. I closed the laptop. I stood up. I turned around. Harlan was watching me. He had not moved. The sheet of paper was still under his hands. I walked to his desk. I looked down at the paper. It was the same email, printed from a different machine. He had already found it. He had been sitting there with it when I walked in. "You already had it," I said. "I did. You let me find it myself." "I did." "Why?" "Because you needed to, Arthur. Because if I had handed it to you, it would have been my discovery. And you would have spent the next 5 years wondering whether I had shown you the right thing or whether I had shown you the thing that served my interests. You needed to sit at her desk. You needed to open her computer. You needed to read it with your own eyes in your own house, so that when you make the decision you are about to make, you make it as a man who found the truth, not a man who was given it." I looked at Harlan. I looked at Zara in the wing chair. She had stopped drawing. Her notebook was closed on her lap. Her hands were folded on top of it. She was watching me with the same expression she had worn in the jewelry store. Patient, steady, the Josephine Carter look. "Harlan," I said, "tell me about the doors." He leaned back in the chair. He pressed his fingertips together. The gesture of a man who has had this conversation in his head 100 times and is now having it out loud for the first and last time. "There are 3 ways this ends," he said. "The first way. We go to the police tomorrow morning. We hand them everything. The emails, the forged signature, the Bermuda policy, the Cayman accounts, the Delaware trusts, everything. And your wife of 42 years and her brother spend the next several years in courtrooms and possibly in prison. This is the door that feels like justice. It is not. It is the door that feels like justice. What it actually is noise. Years of noise. Public noise. Your name in depositions, Bennett's name in depositions, your grandchildren's last name in newspapers. That is door 1. The second way. We go to a different set of lawyers. We structure a separation agreement that protects you, protects Bennett, freezes Gerald out of every account he has touched in the last 6 years, and presents Eleanor with a document that is fair but final. She walks away with a number, not 0, but not what she was reaching for. Gerald becomes a separate conversation, a criminal conversation. We do that one with a different set of attorneys and possibly a different set of agencies. But that is next week. Tonight is about Eleanor. That is door 2. The third way. He paused. He looked at Zara for a second. Then he looked back at me. The third way is that you do nothing. You confront her. You let her cry. You let her tell you it was a misunderstanding. That Gerald was acting alone. That she loves you. That 42 years means something. And you go on. You live in this house with this woman until one of you dies. And you spend whatever time you have left wondering every morning whether the coffee tastes right, whether the pills on the nightstand are the pills you asked for, whether the woman lying next to you in the dark is sleeping or waiting. He set his hands flat on the desk again. I am not telling you which one to choose, he said. I am telling you those are the three doors. I am telling you that you have to walk through one of them by tomorrow morning. And I am telling you, Arthur, and this part I am telling you as your friend, not your lawyer, that the door you choose will be the last big decision you make in this life. So choose it the way you would choose a foundation. Choose it the way you would choose the thing you are going to build the rest of your years on top of. The room was quiet. The safe was open behind him. The papers were spread across the desk like a city seen from above. My city. The city of my life. Mapped out in documents I had signed and documents I had not signed, in documents that had been signed in my name by someone who had practiced my handwriting until she could hook the G's. Zara spoke. Mr. Arthur. I looked at her. She was sitting very still in the wing chair. Her feet did not touch the floor. The fireplace behind her was dark and cold. She looked very small in that chair and very certain at the same time, the way certain buildings look small from the outside and turn out to be deeper than you expected once you walk through the door. My grandma said something else one time. She said, the people who pick the easy door are the people who do not really love anybody. They just love how the person makes them feel. And that is different. She looked at me. I do not know which door you should pick, Mr. Arthur. I am 10, but my grandma cleaned offices for 9 years and she was never wrong about people. Not one time. I turned my face to the window. The study window faces the back lawn. The lawn I paid Esteban $2,000 a month for 14 years to keep perfect. The lawn that had been photographed for the magazine in 2014. The lawn that I had never once in 14 years walked across barefoot. Not once I had paid for that lawn the way a man pays for a painting. Something to look at. Something to own. Not something to feel under your feet. Not something to live on. I stood there for a long time. I do not know how long. Long enough for the light outside to change. Long enough for the gold to leave the trees and the gray to take its place, the slow gray of a Connecticut evening in October, when the day gives up early and does not apologize for it. Then I turned back. Door 2, I said. Harlan closed his eyes, just for 1 second. The briefest closing. Relief, maybe. Or the end of a specific kind of dread he had been carrying for 11 months. Door 2, he said. All right, how long to structure it? 48 hours. I want it presented to her tomorrow morning. I want her sitting across from her own attorney by 10 o'clock, looking at a document she cannot improve on, no matter what she does. I chose the attorney myself, a man named Preston Hale. He is fair. He is thorough. He will not allow her to sign anything she does not understand. She will be represented. She will not be ambushed. She will be met. Clearly. Firmly. The way I should have met her a long time ago. And Gerald? Gerald is a different conversation. Gerald is a criminal conversation. We do that with a different set of people. But not tonight. Tonight is about the woman in my kitchen. Harlan nodded. He began gathering the papers, sorting them with the quick, precise hands of a man who has organized other people's disasters for 30 years. Arthur, he said without looking up, you are going to have to go back in there. You are going to have to eat the soup. You are going to have to sleep in this house tonight. Can you do that? I looked at the email on the desk. The 4 sentences. The word handled. I can do that, I said. I turned to leave the study. Then I stopped. I turned back to Zara. She was still in the wing chair. She had opened her notebook again, but she was not drawing. She was just holding it. The way you hold something familiar when everything around you is not. Zara, I said, you and your mother are not going home tonight. Marcus is going to drive you both to a hotel in the city. There will be a room. There will be a bed. Tomorrow be food. There will be a bed. Tomorrow Harlan's associate will talk to your mother about a new position. A better one. You do not need to decide anything tonight. You just need to sleep. Can you do that? She thought about it. My mom finishes at 9. Marcus will be there at 9. She does not know any of this. Marcus will explain, and Harlan's associate will explain again, and nobody will make her do anything she does not want to do. I promise you that. She thought about it some more. Okay, she said. I started to stand from where I had knelt by the chair. She put her hand on my arm. Lightly. Small fingers. The first time she had touched me since the jewelry store. Mr. Arthur. Yes, You did the right thing. How do you know? She looked at me, the Josephine Carter look. Level, patient, old in a way that had nothing to do with years. Because your face is different, she said. It was tight before. Now it is just sad. Sad is better. Sad means you let go of the thing that was hurting you. I did not have an answer for that. A 10-year-old girl with a pencil sharpened by a kitchen knife and a grandmother who cleaned offices on Wall Street had just described the interior of my chest more accurately than any cardiologist I had ever visited. I stood up. I went back down the hallway. I went back into the kitchen. I sat down across from my wife of 42 years. I ate the soup she had made. I told her it was good. It was good. She had always been a good cook. That was real. That had always been real. Not everything was a lie. That is the thing people do not tell you about betrayal. The hardest part is not the lies. The hardest part is the things that were true. Because the true things are the things that make you wonder if the whole structure could have been saved if someone had just said something 20 years ago. Around 9 o'clock, she said she was going to call Patricia about the divorce, about the lawyer Patricia was using. She took her phone and went to the garden. I watched her through the kitchen window. She was not calling Patricia. I knew that now. I knew it the way I knew the weight of wet concrete and the cost of rebar and the number of bolts in a standard connection plate. I knew it in my hands. Around 11, I told her my back was bothering me. I said I would sleep in the guest room, the small one at the end of the east hallway, the one she never used because she said the morning light was wrong. Of course, darling, she said. She kissed my forehead. She went to our bedroom and closed the door. I sat in the guest room in a chair by the window for the next 7 hours. I did not sleep. I want to be clear about that. I did not lie in bed pretending to sleep the way men do in stories. I did not stare at the ceiling. I sat in a chair and I watched the moon come up over the back lawn around midnight, and I looked at that lawn for a long time. Then I got up. I walked through the house. I did not turn on the lights. I had lived in this house for 16 years, and I knew where every chair was, every door frame, every step. I walked through the dining room where we had hosted Thanksgiving every year since we moved in. 38 Thanksgivings if you counted the years before Greenwich. The long table, the good china, the candles Eleanor always arranged herself because she said the caterer never got the spacing right. I walked through the living room with the Steinway grand that Eleanor played twice a year for guests, and never when she was alone. I had bought that piano for her birthday in 2006, $87,000. She had cried when she saw it. Real tears, or what I had believed were real tears. Now I did not know. Now I would never know. And that was the thing about the doors Harlan had described. Every door led to a hallway full of questions that would never be answered. Did she cry because she loved the piano? Did she cry because she loved me? Did she cry because a woman who is building a long, slow, careful exit from her husband's life sometimes needs to cry to stay in character? I would never know. That was the price of every door. You got to walk through it. You did not get to go back and ask. I walked through the sunroom where Bennett had broken his arm in 2003, jumping off the back of the couch. He was 7. I had been in the kitchen. I heard the sound before I heard the scream, the sound of a small body hitting a hardwood floor at the wrong angle. I had run. I had scooped him up. I had held him on the kitchen floor while Eleanor called the ambulance, and I had felt his heart against my chest, fast, terrified, the heart of a child who believes his father can fix anything. I stood in that room for a long time. Then I walked to the back window. The lawn, the perfect lawn. The $2,000 a month lawn. 14 years. That was $336,000 I had spent on a piece of grass I had never touched with bare feet. I had paid for that lawn the way I had paid for everything. As an investment, as an asset, as something that increased the value of the property. I had not paid for it as a place to lie on a summer afternoon with my grandson and look at the sky. I had not paid for it as a place to take off my shoes and feel the cold morning dew between my toes. I had not paid for it as a place to live. I had paid for it as a place to own. And I understood something standing there in the dark at 3 in the morning in a house that was about to stop being my house. I understood that I had spent my entire adult life paying for things instead of living in them, paying for a lawn instead of walking on it, paying for a piano instead of sitting next to my wife while she played, paying for a son's education instead of sitting next to him at a baseball game, paying for a marriage instead of being in it. And the woman in the bedroom down the hall had figured that out before I had. She had figured out that a man who pays for things instead of living in them is a man who will not notice when the things start to belong to someone else. I went back to the guest room. I sat in the chair. I watched the lawn in the moonlight. I watched it the way a man watches a building he built when he knows the building is coming down in the morning. At 4 o'clock, my phone buzzed once. A text from Marcus. They are at the hotel. Mother is sleeping. Child is reading. The child is reading. Of course she is. At 4:15, I picked up the phone. I dialed Harlan. He answered on the first ring. I am ready, I said. I know, he said. I have been awake since 4 also. There is a car in the driveway. I know. I sent it an hour ago. I have been sitting in it. You have been sitting in my driveway for an hour. I have been sitting in your driveway since 2, Arthur. I was not going to leave you alone in that house tonight. I did not say anything for a moment. There are things between old friends that do not have words. Things that exist in the space between a phone call at 2 in the morning and a car in a driveway and a man who does not leave. All right, I said. I will be down in 10 minutes. Take your time. Harlan. Yes. Thank you for sitting in my driveway. He was quiet for a second. Then he said in a voice that sounded like it had driven up from somewhere deeper than his usual register, that is what driveways are for Arthur. You sit in them until the person inside is ready to come out. I changed my shirt. I put on a clean jacket. I looked in the mirror in the guest bathroom. The face looking back at me was the face of a man I had not seen in a long time. The man from Newark. The man who poured his first slab of concrete in the rain in 1974. The man who had nothing and knew it and was not afraid of knowing it. He looked tired. He looked sad. He looked like a man who was about to walk down a flight of stairs and out a front door and into a morning that would be the first morning of the rest of his life, however many mornings that turned out to be. But his eyes were clear. I went downstairs, and the house was quiet behind me, the way houses are quiet when they know something is ending. Eleanor was in the kitchen. I knew she would be, the way I knew everything about that kitchen, the way I knew which floorboard creaked outside the pantry and which drawer stuck in the humidity and which burner on the stove ran hot on the left side, because the gas line had a slight irregularity that I had never fixed because Eleanor said she liked it. She said it kept her honest. She said a stove that runs perfectly makes a lazy cook. I stood in the hallway for a moment before I turned the corner. I could hear her. The small sounds of a woman making coffee, the clink of the ceramic canister against the countertop, the soft rush of water filling the pot. The particular rhythm she had with that machine, the way she tapped the filter twice before she set it in the basket, a habit she had picked up from her mother and never lost, and probably never would, because the things we inherit from our mothers are the last things to leave us, even when everything else has already gone. I want to tell you about those sounds. I want to tell you about them because they are the part of this story I have not been able to tell anyone. Not Bennett, not Harlan, not Zara, who I have seen many times in the years since, and who has grown into a young woman in her second year at Spelman College studying pre-med, and who I love in a particular quiet way that does not have a name in English, but that exists somewhere between gratitude and fatherhood, and the strange, specific debt a man owes to the person who handed him back his own life when he did not know it had been taken. I have not been able to tell any of them about the next 4 minutes. I will try to tell you. She was wearing the blue robe. The robe she had owned since 1998. The robe I had bought her at Bergdorf Goodman the year my mother died because I had not known what else to do for her. Because I had not been good at the part of marriage where you comfort someone. I had been good at the part where you provide. I had been good at the part where you write the check and make the call and solve the problem. But the part where you sit with someone in the dark and say nothing and let them feel what they feel without trying to fix it. That part I had failed at for 42 years. And a robe had seemed like a thing she could wrap around herself when I was not there, which was most of the time. She had loved that robe. She had worn it for 28 years. The collar was soft from washing. The cuffs were frayed in a way that made them look like they belonged to a woman who had earned every thread. She was wearing it now. Standing at the counter with her back to the hallway pouring water into the coffee maker, the way she had poured water into the coffee maker every morning of the 16 years we had lived in that house. She turned when she heard my shoes on the tile. She smiled. "You are up early," she said. "On a Wednesday. I have a meeting in the city." On a Wednesday, she held out a coffee cup. I took it. Our fingers touched. The way our fingers had touched over coffee cups for 42 years. The small domestic contact that you stop noticing after the first decade, and that becomes, without your knowing it, the architecture of your entire emotional life. The beam you do not see, the one that holds everything up, the one you do not know is there until it is gone. I drank from the cup. The coffee was good. She had always made very good coffee. That was real. I held on to that. In the days and weeks and months that followed, I held on to the things that were real. The coffee, the way she arranged flowers, the sound of her laugh in 1984 outside the church in Bay Ridge in the rain. Those things were real. They had to be real. Because if they were not, then the man I had been for 42 years was a man who had lived his entire life inside a building that had never existed. And that was a thought I could not afford to have. Not yet. Not at 6 in the morning in a kitchen where I had to keep my hands steady for 4 more minutes. She looked at my face for a long moment, longer than usual. Something in her had noticed something. Some small animal radar that women develop over decades of marriage. The ability to read a man's posture the way a sailor reads the sky. Not the details, but the pressure, the direction the wind is about to turn. "Arthur," she said, "is everything all right?" I looked at her. I looked at my wife of 42 years in the blue robe I had bought her in 1998, holding a coffee cup in our kitchen at 6 in the morning. The pearl earrings from her mother were not in yet. Without them, she looked younger. She looked like the woman I had married. She looked like the woman in the rain. And I let myself look at her for the last time as the woman I had believed she was. "Eleanor," I said, "I have always loved you. I want you to know that. Whatever happens today, I have always loved you." Her face changed. I want you to understand that it changed in stages. The way a sky changes when a front moves through. Not all at once. In layers. First, puzzlement. The small crease between her eyebrows that I had watched deepen over the decades from a line into a furrow. Then concern. The softening around the mouth that she did when she was preparing to comfort me, to manage me, to steer the conversation back to the place where she was in control and I was the man who needed steering. And then very fast, very brief, a flash of something else. Calculation. The kind of calculation a person does in 1/100th of a second when they realize that the conversation they are standing in is not the conversation they thought it was. The kind of calculation that involves not what is being said, but what is known. How much, by whom, and how long ago. And then just as fast, the calculation went under. And the wife's worried face came back over the top of it, like a curtain being drawn across a window that had been left open by mistake. But I had seen it. The flash, the thing underneath, the silk in the corner of the stone. She set down her coffee cup. She came around the island toward me. She put her hand on my face, the way she had put her hand on my face 1,000 times. In the kitchen, in the bedroom, at hospitals when I was the one in the bed, at funerals when I was the one who could not speak. Her hand on my face, the gesture that said, "I am here. I am your wife. I am the woman who has been standing next to you for 42 years. Trust me." "Arthur," she said, soft, "you are scaring me. What is happening?" "Harlan Burgess is in the driveway." "Harlan," she said his name carefully, the way you say the name of something you are trying to identify. "Harlan Burgess, your attorney. He is going to drive me into the city. He is going to take me to his office. At 10 o'clock this morning, you will receive a phone call from a man named Preston Hale. Preston is also an attorney. He represents you. He has been retained on your behalf as of 40 minutes ago. He is a very good attorney. I chose him myself." Her hand was still on my face. I could feel her fingers, the slight pressure, the warmth, the specific warmth of a hand that has touched your face for 42 years and that you are feeling for the last time, and you know it, and she does not. "Arthur, what are you talking about?" "Preston will explain everything. He has a document. The document is fair. It is more than fair. It will allow you to live the rest of your life in significant comfort. It will not allow you to live the rest of it in this house. And it will not allow you to contact Gerald in any capacity. And it will not allow you to contact Bennett or his children. Under any circumstance. Those are the conditions. Preston will go through them with you. He will not allow you to sign anything you do not understand." She took her hand off my face. I watched her go through the stages again. Puzzlement, concern, the flash, And this time the flash did not go back under. This time it stayed. This time it rose to the surface and stayed there the way something rises to the surface of water when it is too heavy to float and too stubborn to sink. I had been married for 42 years to a woman I did not know. And now in my kitchen at 6 in the morning, I was meeting her. She was not crying. That is the thing I want you to understand. There were no tears. Her face went very still and very smooth, and her eyes went a color I had never seen them go in 42 years. A color like the inside of a stone. Not warm, not cold, just hard, just certain. The certainty of a woman who has been preparing for this moment the way I had prepared for construction deadlines, with contingencies, with backup plans, with the clear-eyed understanding that the thing you are building might not hold, and you need to know what to do when it does not. She stepped back from me. One step. Two. She folded her arms across the blue robe. The robe I had bought her in 1998, the year my mother died, the year I could not comfort her, the year I bought comfort instead. You went into my email, she said. Not a question, a statement. The voice of a woman who is no longer performing. Yes, the girl in the store. She is not relevant to what happens next. She is a child, Arthur. She is a maid's daughter. She does not know what she saw. She does not know what she heard. Mrs. Patterson called me yesterday afternoon. She said one of the cleaning woman's children was bothering you. I told her not to make a fuss. I told her you were good with children. I told her you would handle it. I did handle it, I said. Something moved in her jaw, a small tightening, the way steel tightens before it bends. Arthur, whatever you think you know. Eleanor, whatever you think you have. Eleanor, stop. You do not have anything, darling. You have a confused little girl and an email taken out of context and 42 years of a marriage that I have given my entire life to. You do not get to do this. You do not get to throw away 42 years because some child in a jewelry store told you a fairy tale about a stone. She said it with conviction. She said it with the force of a woman who has spent 3 years building an argument she hoped she would never have to use, and who is now using it and discovering in real time that it is not working. That the man standing in front of her is not the man she built the argument for. That the man she built the argument for was the man who did not look twice. And that man is gone. And the man who is standing in his place is the man from Newark. The man with the borrowed mixer. The man who looks twice at everything. I did not argue with her. I did not present evidence. I did not list the things I knew: the Caymans, the Delaware Trust, the Bermuda policy, the forged signature that hooked the G's. I did not need to. Arguing is what you do when you are trying to win. I was not trying to win. There was nothing left to win. You cannot win a marriage. You can only be in one or not be in one. And I was no longer in one. I looked at her, and I felt something I did not expect. Not anger. The anger had come and gone in the chair in my study at 4 in the afternoon, the day before reading those 4 sentences about Bennett. What I felt now was something else entirely. I felt the particular sadness of a man who has very late understood the shape of his own life. The sadness of a man looking at a building he built and realizing the foundation was wrong from the beginning, and that the building stood anyway. For 42 years it stood. On nothing. On the willingness of 2 people to keep walking on floors they both knew were not level. She knew they were not level because she had made them that way. I knew they were not level because I had refused to look down. It is a strange thing to admire and grieve in the same breath. But that is what I felt. I had built a marriage on nothing, and the marriage had stood for 42 years because I had been good at building and she had been good at appearing. And together we had made a structure so convincing that even I had lived inside it without question. Eleanor, I said. Arthur, please. Her voice had changed. There was something in it now that had not been there a moment ago. Not desperation. Not yet. But the near edge of it. The way a woman's voice sounds when she is standing at the border of a country she does not want to enter and can feel the ground shifting under her feet. Preston Hale will be calling at 10. Please be dressed. Please drink some water. Please do not call Gerald. Gerald's phone is going to ring in about 90 minutes. And the people calling him are not the people you would want to warn him about. Her face did something then, just for a second. It cracked. The smooth, hard surface cracked, and underneath I saw for one moment the woman from Bay Ridge. The girl in the rain outside the church in 1984. The girl who had laughed because the photographer forgot the umbrellas. The girl who had grabbed my hand and pulled me under the awning of a dry cleaners across the street and kissed me while the rain came down and her mother's dress got wet and neither of us cared. She was still in there, way down at the bottom, the way certain children are still inside the adults who used to be them. Even after everything, even after the Caymans, even after the forged signature, even after the email about Bennett. She was still in there, the girl who had kissed me in the rain. I almost reached for her. I did not reach for her. That more than anything else is the thing I have had to live with. Not the betrayal, not the money, not the years of silence and careful maneuvering and the slow, patient disassembly of my life. The thing I have had to live with is that I almost reached for her and I did not. Because reaching for her would have been door 3. And door 3 was the easy door. And a woman named Josephine Carter, who I never met, who cleaned offices on Wall Street and died too young, had told her granddaughter that the easy door is for people who do not really love anybody. And I loved her. That was the terrible thing. I loved her. Standing there in my kitchen at 6 in the morning watching her face crack open and reveal the girl from 1984, I loved her. And it was because I loved her that I could not reach for her. Because love that reaches for the lie is not love. It is comfort. And I had spent 42 years choosing comfort. And comfort had brought me here. To a kitchen, at dawn, saying goodbye to a woman who had been planning to bury me in the house I built for her. I set the coffee cup on the counter. I turned around. I walked through the kitchen, down the hallway, past the photograph on the mantle from 1989. Newport, the boat, Bennett between us, the sun in our eyes. I did not look at it. I walked out the front door, down the front steps, across the gravel that crunched under my shoes the way it had crunched under my shoes for 16 years. The sound of home. The sound that would not be the sound of home after today. Harlan was in the back of the sedan. He had been there since 2 in the morning, 6 hours in a car in my driveway in the cold. He did not say anything when I got in. He looked at my face once, and then he looked away. The way a friend looks away when he sees something he does not need to comment on. The car pulled out through the gate. The gate closed behind us. I did not look back. Marcus drove. The morning was just starting. The kind of October morning in Connecticut where the light comes in low and gold and the trees along the road are on fire and the world looks so beautiful that you cannot believe anything bad could happen in it. But bad things happen in beautiful places. That is one of the things I have learned. Bad things happen in cream-colored kitchens and on manicured lawns and behind gates with codes that get changed every few months for security, darling. We did not speak for the first 20 minutes of the drive. Harlan and I sat in the back and watched Connecticut go past and said nothing the way men say nothing when the thing between them is too large for words and too important for small talk. Then Harlan spoke. Bennett will be at my office at 11. I turned to look at him. I called him this morning, Harlan said. At 7. I told him his father was on his way in. I told him there were things he should hear from you and not from me. What did he say? He said he would be there at 10:30. I nodded. I turned back to the window. The trees were thinning. The parkway was widening. The city was beginning to reassemble itself ahead of us, rising out of the landscape the way cities do when you approach them from the north. First the outskirts, then the bridges, then the skyline, and then you are inside it and you cannot remember a time when you were not. Bennett was at Harlan's office at 10:15, 45 minutes early. I want to tell you what I saw when I walked into that outer office on the 23rd floor of a building on Park Avenue at 10:17 in the morning on a Wednesday in October. I saw my son. He was sitting on the leather couch by the window, the couch that Harlan's wife had picked out in 2003 because she said it would make the office feel less intimidating, which it had not because Harlan Burgess would intimidate a room with no furniture at all. Bennett was sitting on the edge of it, not leaning back, not relaxed, sitting the way a man sits when he has been carrying something heavy for a long time and has just been told he can set it down but does not yet believe it. He was 41 years old, my only son. He had my father's shoulders broad, slightly rounded the shoulders of a man built for carrying, not for show. He had his mother's eyes. He had a beard he had been growing for 2 years that I had never told him I liked because I had grown up in a house where men did not tell their sons they liked their beards. where men did not tell their sons much of anything, where love was expressed through presence, through labor, through the silent act of showing up and doing the work, and assuming that the work itself was the message, and that the message did not need to be spoken, because speaking it would make it smaller somehow, as if love were a thing that lost its strength when you put it into words. I had carried that house with me into the next house, and into the house after that, the way men do, the way we inherit not just the things our fathers built, but the things they could not build. The silences, the distances, the closed doors that were not locked, but might as well have been. He stood up when he saw me. We looked at each other. I want to tell you what 41 years of being a father feels like in a single moment in a lawyer's outer office on a Wednesday morning in October. It feels like a long hallway with too many doors, and every door is a thing you should have said. A baseball game in Atlanta you missed because of a meeting that could have waited. A school play you watched from the back row because you had been on a call until 6 minutes before curtain, and you had told yourself that being there at all was enough, that the back row still counted, that he would not notice where you were sitting. He noticed. Children always notice. They notice the way Zara noticed the silk in the stone, with the part of them that is built for noticing. The part that adults spend their whole lives trying to unlearn. A graduation where you flew in from Tokyo the night before and fell asleep during the valedictorian speech and pretended later that you had been moved. A wedding where you gave a toast that was about you and not about him, and you did not realize it was about you until you watched the video 3 years later and saw his face while you were talking. Not hurt, not angry, just patient. The patience of a son who has accepted that his father is a man who turns every room into a room about himself and who has decided to love him anyway. Every door. I could see them all from the hallway. Every one. In the moment my son stood up off that couch, he did not say anything. I did not say anything. He took 2 steps toward me. I took 2 steps toward him. We met in the middle of the rug, the gray rug that Harlan's wife had bought to make the office feel less intimidating. It had not made the office feel less intimidating, but it had on this particular morning given 2 men a place to stand while one of them did something he should have done 30 years ago. Bennett hugged me. He hugged me the way he had hugged me when he was 7 years old and had fallen off the dock at the lake house in the Adirondacks, and I had jumped in after him and pulled him out and held him on the grass while he coughed up water. He had held on to me then with his whole body, with the desperate total grip of a child who believes that his father is the only solid thing in a world made of water. He held on to me now with that same grip. 41 years old, a lawyer, a father, a man who had carried his father's life on his back for 11 months without being asked and without complaint. He held on to me, and he did not let go. I held him back. I held my son in the outer office of my attorney on Park Avenue, and I felt every door in the hallway close behind me, all at once, all of them. And I understood that there would not be any more doors, that this was the last one, that the man I had been was on the other side of all those doors, and the man I was going to be from now on was going to have to live with what he had failed to do, and was also going to have to live with this. This, my son, holding on. When he stepped back, his face was wet. So was mine. "Dad," he said. "Bennett, I should have told you. No, I should have built a man you could tell. That is on me. That is not on you. Do you hear me, Bennett? That is on me." He looked at me. He was a head shorter than me, which had always surprised me, because in my head, he had always been taller. In my head, he was still the boy on the dock reaching up. He had never been that tall. I had not noticed. He sat down on the couch. I sat down next to him. Close. The way fathers and sons do not sit in my family. The way we should have been sitting for 40 years. "Dad," he said again. And then he told me. He told me about the 11 months. He told me slowly in the quiet, steady voice of a man who has rehearsed this conversation 100 times in his head and is now having it for real and discovering that the real version does not sound anything like the rehearsal. He told me about the evening in November 11 months ago when Eleanor had called him into the study in Greenwich after dinner. He told me about the document she had placed in front of him, a trust amendment. He told me about the way she had presented it, casual, light. "Your father and I are doing some estate planning, darling. Gerald is helping us restructure a few things. We just need your signature on this one page. Standard. Nothing to worry about. He told me about the thing that had stopped him from signing. Not the document itself, which he did not fully understand at the time. The thing that stopped him was the way she asked, the speed of it, the particular kind of lightness that is not actually lightness, but is a performance of lightness by a person who is trying very hard to make something look small that is not small. He knew that performance. He was a lawyer. He had seen clients do it 1,000 times. He had never seen his mother do it. He did not sign. He told her he wanted to read it first. She said, "Of course, darling, take it home, look it over, no rush." But her eyes did a thing, a small thing, a thing he had never seen before. A flash. The same flash I had seen in the kitchen that morning. He took the document home. He read it. He did not understand all of it, but he understood enough to know that it moved assets in a direction that did not include me. He called Harlan the next morning. And then he told me the part that I was not prepared for. He told me that for 11 months, every time he came to dinner in Greenwich, he had been watching. Every time Eleanor left the room to make a phone call, he had been noting the time and the duration. Every time Gerald came to dinner, Bennett had been reading the room the way Zara read the light inside a stone, looking for the zones, looking for the places where the color pooled different in the corners. He had been photographing documents when he could, slipping into the study during holiday dinners while Eleanor was in the kitchen and I was in the living room watching football with Gerald and not noticing that my son was not in the room. He had been building a file, quietly, carefully, the way I had built buildings, one piece at a time, making sure each piece could bear weight before he moved to the next. For 11 months, he had sat across from his mother at the long table in the dining room and carved the turkey and passed the wine and asked about her book club and laughed at her jokes and kissed her cheek when he arrived and kissed her cheek when he left. And the whole time he had been carrying in his chest the knowledge that the woman who gave birth to him was systematically dismantling his father's life. And he had done it because he loved me. And he had done it alone because I had not built a man he could do it with. "Dad," he said. His voice was steady, but his hands were not. "I did not know what to do. I did not know how to tell you. Every time I came to dinner, I would look at you across the table, and I would think, this is the night. This is the night," I tell him. "And then you would make a joke about your golf swing, and Mom would pour the wine, and the moment would pass. And I would drive home and sit in my car in the driveway for 20 minutes before I went inside, because I could not let Sarah see my face until it was my face again." I did not say anything for a long time. I sat next to my son on the gray couch in Harlan's outer office, and I felt the full weight of 11 months of silence settle on my shoulders, the way concrete settles when you pour it. Heavy, permanent, something you cannot undo once it is set. "Bennett," I said finally. "Yes, you carried this for 11 months. Yes, while sitting across from your mother, while looking her in the eye, while letting her kiss your cheek. Yes. Why?" He looked at me. His eyes were his mother's eyes, the same shape, the same color. But behind them was something that was entirely his own, something that Eleanor did not have and had never had and could not have given him even if she had wanted to. A quality I do not have a word for, except maybe the word that Zara's grandmother would have used. Steadiness. "Because you are my father," he said, "and she was hurting you, and I could not stop her by myself. But I could make sure that when the time came when somebody finally told you, there would be enough evidence to protect you. I could do that. I could do that much." He paused. And because I remembered something he said, from when I was a kid, I was maybe 8 or 9. We were in the car. You were driving me to school, and I asked you what you did at work. And you said you built things, and I said what kind of things, and you said buildings, and I said how, and you said one piece at a time. You said you start with the foundation, and you lay it right, and then you build on top of it, one piece at a time, and if you do it right, the building stands, and if you do not, it falls, and nobody can tell you it is going to fall, because you are the one who laid the foundation, and you are the only one who knows. He looked at me. "So that is what I did, Dad. I laid the foundation, one piece at a time, and I waited for you to come and build on top of it." Harlan's door opened. Harlan looked at the two of us, sitting on the couch. He looked at our faces. He did not say anything. He went back into his office. He closed the door. Bennett and I sat on the couch for another 20 minutes. We did not talk about Eleanor. We did not talk about Gerald. We did not talk about the email or the Bermuda policy or the Cayman accounts. We talked about a fishing trip we had taken to Montana in 1994. He was 12. I remembered the cabin, but I had forgotten the river. He remembered the river. He remembered a brown trout he had caught on the second morning that was too small to keep and that I had shown him how to release. Hold it in the current, I had told him. Let the water run through its gills. Wait until it is ready, then open your hand. He remembered that. I had not known he remembered that. A man does not know which moments his son keeps and which ones he lets go. A man does not get to choose which version of himself lives on in his child's memory. He can only do what he does and hope that somewhere in the ordinary, unremarkable days, the child finds something worth holding. We talked about his youngest, a boy named Oliver who was 6 and who had a thing about dinosaurs. Not the popular ones, the obscure ones, the ones with names that sounded like they had been invented by a committee. Oliver could name 47 dinosaurs. Bennett knew this because Oliver had counted them at breakfast last Tuesday. And then Bennett said something. Dad, when this is done, when all of it is done, yes, come to Maine with us, this summer. We found a place, a small house on the water. It is not Greenwich. It is not anything like Greenwich. It is small and the porch leans a little and the kitchen is the size of your closet. But there is a lawn, a real one, grass and clover and dandelions. Oliver plays on it every morning. He looked at me. Come sit on the porch with me. Bring a book. Do not bring your phone. Just come and sit. The kids want to know you. They love you, but they do not know you. I want them to know you. I had to look at the gray rug for a long moment before I could answer. The rug that was not intimidating. The rug where I had hugged my son for the first time in 30 years. All right, I said. All right, son. I will come. Harlan's door opened again. This time he came out. This time there was work to do. The day was beginning. The day had been beginning the whole time. We just had not been looking at it. I am not going to tell you the details of what happened next. Not because they do not matter, but because I have learned over the last 3 years that the details of how a marriage ends are the least important thing about how a marriage ends. The details are for lawyers and accountants and the people who write articles. They are not for the man living through it, and they are not for you. But I will tell you the facts, because the facts have a simplicity that the details do not. Preston Hale called Eleanor at 10 o'clock. She did not pick up. He called again at 10:30. She did not pick up. At 11:15, Harlan called the state police and asked them to do a wellness check on the house in Greenwich. They arrived at 12:04. They found Eleanor in the kitchen, fully dressed, the cream sweater, the gray slacks, the outfit she had been planning to wear to her 70th birthday party. She was sitting at the breakfast nook. She had a small overnight bag at her feet. She had drunk most of a bottle of wine. She was not hurt. She was not in danger. She was just sitting there, waiting. In a house she already knew was not her house anymore. She went with the troopers to a hotel in Stamford. Preston Hale met her there at 3. She signed the document at 5:40. It was more than fair. I had made sure of that. Not for her, for the man I wanted to be when I looked in the mirror the next morning. Gerald was arrested in Connecticut 2 days later. He took a deal 6 weeks after that. The kind of deal that involves a number and a condition and a silence that is enforced by a court. Vincent the salesman took a deal of his own. The carrier in Bermuda voided the policy. The asset protection structure in Delaware unwound itself the way these things do when the daylight finds them quickly and without ceremony. I never saw Eleanor again. That is not a dramatic statement. It is just a fact. I never saw her again. She moved to Charleston. Her sister lives there. She has a small apartment with a view of the water. She has a routine. She has, I am told, a kind of quietness that she did not have in our house. I am told she is well. I am told she does not speak of me. I am told that on her 71st birthday last June, she went to dinner alone at a restaurant by the water and ordered the fish. I hope that is true. I hope she ordered the fish and it was good, and she watched the boats, and she was for one evening the woman I had believed I was married to for 42 years. That is not forgiveness. I do not know yet what forgiveness is at 74. I am still working on it. But I hope she ordered the fish. Zara is 19 now. Her mother, whose name is Vivian, runs the housekeeping department at a hospital in the Bronx. She makes $91,000 a year. She has health insurance. She has a pension. She has a two-bedroom apartment in a building with an elevator and a doorman and a laundry room in the basement that works. Zara is at Spelman College, second year, pre-med, on a scholarship that does not come from me. The scholarship is hers. She earned it with grades and test scores and an essay about her grandmother that made the admissions committee call her on the phone to ask if she was real. She is real. Although the things around the scholarship, the laptop and the winter coat, and a plane ticket home at Christmas, those come from me. Because Zara allowed me to give them to her after a long conversation in a diner on 47th Street, the same diner where her mother likes the pancakes, in which she explained to me very carefully and very firmly the difference between a gift and a debt. A gift is something you give because you want to, she said. A debt is something you give because you have to. I will take the gift. I will not take the debt. Are we clear, Mr. Arthur? We were clear. She is going to be a doctor. She has not decided what kind yet. She told me last Christmas that she is leaning toward emergency medicine. Her grandmother, she said, used to tell her that the people in the emergency room are the people who finally got somebody to look at them. Sometimes that is the whole job, Mr. Arthur. Just looking at people. Some people have never been looked at their whole life. I have a photograph of her on the table next to my reading chair. It was taken at her high school graduation. She is in the blue gown. She is holding the diploma. She is not smiling. She is doing the level look, the Josephine Carter look, the look she gave me in the jewelry store on Fifth Avenue when she was 10 years old and decided to trust an old man with a checkbook and a wife who was quietly taking his life apart. Next to that photograph, there is another photograph. Newport, 1989. The deck of the boat. Bennett is 3. Eleanor and I are squinting into the sun. I keep them both there. I keep them both on the same table. Because a man does not get to choose which parts of his life were real. They were all real. The wedding in the rain in Bay Ridge. The 42 years. The email about Bennett. The cream sweater. The 10-year-old girl with the steady eyes. The son who hugged me in a lawyer's office on Park Avenue. The fishing trip in Montana I had almost forgotten. The lawn I never walked on barefoot. All real. All mine. And here is where I want to leave you. It is July. This past July. A Saturday morning. I am in Maine. The small house Bennett told me about. He was right. It is not Greenwich. It is not anything like Greenwich. The porch leans. The kitchen is the size of my old closet. The nearest restaurant is a lobster shack 11 miles up the coast that closes at 7 and does not take reservations because there is nothing to reserve. There are 4 tables and a counter and a woman named Dorothy who has been frying clams since 1981 and does not care what your name is or how much your watch cost. I am sitting on the porch. It is early, 6:30 maybe. The sun is just clearing the tree line across the cove. The water is doing the thing Maine water does in the early morning, going flat and silver, and still like a mirror that has decided to show you the sky instead of your own face. Bennett is inside. I can hear him in the kitchen. He is making coffee. He makes terrible coffee. He uses too much water and not enough grounds, and the result is a thin brown liquid that tastes like it has been thinking about becoming coffee, but has not yet committed. I drink it every morning without complaint. It is the best coffee I have ever had. Oliver is somewhere in the yard. I can hear him. He is talking to himself the way 6-year-olds talk to themselves, narrating his own adventure, providing commentary, doing the voices. He is currently being chased by a Pachycephalosaurus, which is apparently a dinosaur with a very hard head that uses it for ramming. Oliver approves of this strategy. I am sitting on the porch in a chair that Bennett bought at a yard sale for $12. My feet are on the grass, bare feet, on the grass. The grass is cold and wet and full of clover, and there is a dandelion between my toes, and I am not paying anyone $2,000 a month to maintain it. Nobody is maintaining it. It is just grass. It is just doing what grass does. Growing, being green, being alive. Bennett comes out through the screen door. He is carrying 2 mugs. He hands me one. He sits down in the other chair, the chair that matches mine because they came as a pair from the same yard sale, and they are both slightly broken in the same way, which is the best way for 2 chairs to be broken together. He does not say anything. He drinks his terrible coffee. He looks at the water. I drink my terrible coffee. I look at the water. Oliver comes around the corner of the house at full speed. He has a stick in one hand that is apparently a weapon of some kind, and a stuffed dinosaur in the other that is apparently his ally. He sees me. He stops. He grins. The grin of a 6-year-old who has just discovered that his grandfather is sitting in a chair with bare feet in the wet grass like a regular person, and not like the man in the suit in the photograph on the mantel. "Grandpa," he says, "do you want to see something?" "I do," I say. "I want to see everything." He runs off. Bennett looks at me. He does not say anything. He does not need to. He just looks at me with the look of a son who has finally gotten to the other side of something, and who has found on the other side a father he can sit next to in a broken chair on a leaning porch and drink bad coffee with on a Saturday morning in July. I close my eyes. I feel the grass under my feet. I feel the sun on my face. I hear Oliver somewhere in the yard roaring. I hear the water doing nothing. I hear Bennett breathing next to me, the quiet, steady breathing of a man who is at rest. I am 74 years old. I have built buildings that will stand for 100 years after I'm gone. I have built a company that bears my name. I have built a fortune that would take 3 lifetimes to spend. But this chair, this grass, this coffee that tastes like an apology for coffee, this boy roaring in the yard, this son sitting next to me saying nothing because nothing is exactly the right thing to say. This is the first thing I have ever built that I do not have to pay for. This is the first thing I have ever built that I can feel under my feet.